Have you ever stopped to think about the shape of the Earth? Is it round, as we've always been told? Or perhaps, could it be flat, as some people still believe today? It seems like a simple subject, right? But throughout history, many people have discussed and tried to prove different theories about the shape of our planet. And the ideas never cease to amaze. The first theory that comes to most people's minds is that the Earth is round. That is, it has the shape of a sphere. This is what science has taught since ancient Greece, with figures like Aristotle showing evidence of this. But as time went by, other very curious ideas emerged. Have you heard of the flat Earth theory? Well, a group of people called flat earthers believe that the Earth is a large flat disk and that, when you look at the horizon, you see the end of the Earth's edge. Amazing, right? But what do these flat earthers have to say about all this? What many people don't know is that, in the past, this idea of a flat Earth was quite common. But later, with the help of science, scholars realized that the Earth was not a simple flat disk, but rather a geoid, that is, a somewhat crumpled and irregular shape, like a crumpled ball of paper. In other words, it is neither perfectly round nor flat. The shape of the Earth is much more complex than we imagine. Cool, right? And to complicate matters even more, other crazy theories have emerged. Some people say that the Earth is a donut, like a slice of bread with a hole in the middle, or even that it is on top of a large turtle shell. But despite these curious ideas, science has shown that the true shape of the Earth is quite different from all of this. Now, you must be wondering, if the Earth is round or a geoid, why do some people still believe that it is flat? The answer is simple. Theories and beliefs can be very strong, even when there is no scientific evidence to support them. And that is exactly what happened when some flat earthers tried to prove that the Earth was flat. And that is where the most interesting part comes in. They failed in their attempts. Let's understand better how they tried, but failed to prove their ideas. One of the most well-known flat earthers was Bob Codell, a strong advocate of the flat Earth theory, who conducted a bold experiment in 2018. He used a laser gyroscope, a device that measures the rotation and orientation of objects. Bob's idea was simple. He wanted to test whether the Earth was rotating or not. According to him, if the Earth were flat, the gyroscope shouldn't show any rotation deviation. He believed the Earth didn't spin. Bob spent a significant amount of money to buy the equipment, over $10,000, and was excited to prove his theory. But what happened was the opposite. When he turned on the gyroscope and started the tests, the device showed a 15-degree deviation in just 1 hour, exactly the expected amount for the Earth's rotation. This meant the Earth was indeed spinning just like science has always said. Instead of admitting the mistake and accepting what the experiment showed, Bob simply claimed that the experiment was wrong and wasn't valid anymore. It was as if he chose to ignore the evidence right in front of him simply because he didn't want to accept that the Earth is round. Another famous experiment was by Garen Campanella, who together with Bob tried to prove the Earth was flat using a very simple method. They took two wooden boards and drilled a hole in each, placing them at a height of about 5.18 meters. The plan was as follows. They placed a flashlight on one side and a camera on the other, trying to see if the light would pass through the holes in the boards without difficulty. According to their theory, if the Earth were flat, the light should pass through the holes directly, with no problem. But what happened? When the experiment started, the light didn't appear in the camera as they expected. They tried multiple times, but they could only see the light when they lifted the flashlight higher. This made them realize what science already knew. The Earth is curved. If the Earth were flat, the light should have been seen directly, without any deviation. But since the Earth is round, the light couldn't pass through the same way, and the experiment failed to prove the idea of a flat Earth. These examples show how, even with equipment and tests conducted with good intentions, wrong theories are debunked by nature itself. And the most curious thing is that Despite these clear results, some flat earthers still insist on denying the Earth's curvature. It's like saying that rain doesn't get you wet, even when you're soaking wet. Would you be able to accept these results, even if they contradicted your own opinion? Sometimes it's hard, right? But as we've seen, science and experiments help us understand the world in the most accurate way possible. And in the case of the Earth, there's no escaping it. It's round. If you find all of this interesting, then you need to know about a documentary released in 2018 that shows in detail what happens when people try, in every possible way, to prove the Earth is flat. The film is called Behind the Curve and follows the lives of flat earthers who are dedicated to proving their theory, conducting experiments, and trying to convince the world that science is wrong. What's most fascinating about this documentary isn't just watching the experiments fail, but also noticing how many of the flat earthers refuse to accept the opposing evidence. Even with clear proof and experiments that show the Earth is round, some of them still insist on their belief that the Earth is flat. This happens because often personal beliefs are stronger than reason and scientific evidence. Have you ever heard of people who, no matter how many facts are shown to them, still prefer to believe what they already had in mind? Well, this documentary offers a great lesson on how the human mind can be resistant to change, even in the face of evidence. In the film, you'll see some of these flat earthers conducting experiments that completely fail to prove the Earth is flat. For example, there's an experiment by a group that tried to measure the Earth's curvature using a water dam. Their idea was simple. If the Earth were flat, the water should always be at the same level. But what happened? When they observed the water, they realized there was, in fact, a difference in level exactly as would be expected on a round Earth. Even so, many of them did not accept the result and continued to believe in their theory. This is what makes the documentary so interesting and at the same time a bit sad. It shows people who, despite their efforts and spending time and money on experiments, continue to cling to their beliefs, ignoring what science and reality are showing them. In the end, many of the flat earthers interviewed in the film become defensive. Instead of admitting they were wrong, they try to come up with alternative explanations to justify the results. They fail, but they don't give up on their ideas. This makes us reflect. Why is it so hard to change our minds when we're so convinced of something? The documentary offers a strong critique of human resistance to change. When people have a deeply held belief, it can be challenging to accept facts that contradict it, even when the evidence is clear. The story of the flat earthers in the documentary is a good example of how absolute certainty can blind us to the truth. No matter how many experiments show the Earth is round, they simply refuse to accept it. This happens not only with the flat Earth theory, but with many other ideas where sometimes we want to believe so badly that we close our eyes to what's clearly in front of us. Now, tell me, what do you think about this? Have you ever found yourself in a situation where, even with proof, it was hard to change your mind? It's normal, but the important thing is to always be open to new information and what science has to offer. Because, in the end, knowledge is what helps us see the world more clearly. Now let's talk about one of the boldest and most tragic stories related to the flat Earth theory. Have you ever heard of Mike Hughes, the Mad Mike? He was a stuntman, inventor, and adventurer from the US who became known for his attempt to reach space and prove once and for all that the Earth was flat. Yes, he built rockets to try to reach a height where he could see with his own eyes that the Earth wasn't round, as science claimed. And he was willing to risk everything for it. Mike believed that if he could get into space and film the curvature of the Earth, he could prove all the evidence showing the Earth is spherical was wrong. His idea was that by filming the Earth from above, he could show the world that the Earth really didn't have the curvature depicted in NASA's images and those from other space agencies. He wanted to prove that everything we know about the shape of the Earth was a huge hoax. And he was so determined that he even built his own rockets. In March 2018, Mike launched his rocket for the first time. He built it all himself, spending a fortune around $10,000, using simple materials like metal tubing and steam fuel. The rocket launched, reaching an altitude of 570 meters, well below the height needed to see the curvature of the Earth, and then fell back down. Mike got hurt a little but survived. However, he didn't give up, and instead of backing down, he decided to continue with his project. In 2020, Mike was even more determined. He spent $18,000, almost 100,000 reais, to build a new rocket with the help of a friend, aiming to reach 1.5 kilometers in altitude to see the curvature of the Earth up close. This rocket was steam-powered, and Mike was ready for liftoff. He even managed to get some sponsors to help fund his adventure. Everything seemed set for the big experiment. In February 2020, the rocket was launched in a town in California called Barstow, and the event was filmed and documented in a series called Homemade Astronauts. The launch seemed promising, but something went wrong right at the beginning. The rocket's parachute deployed too early, causing the rocket to fall uncontrollably. As a result, the rocket lost stability, and Mike suffered a fatal accident. The worst part is that, in the end, Mike didn't manage to prove the Earth was flat. He didn't reach the necessary height to see the curvature of the Earth, and more importantly, he didn't manage to refute any of the scientific evidence already out there. Instead, his search for the definitive proof ended in tragedy. Mike Hughes' story is one of those that mixes courage, stubbornness, and even a bit of tragedy. He was a man who deeply believed in what he was doing and was willing to go to any lengths to prove his theory. But reality ended up being stronger than his beliefs. He spent so much money, so much effort, and risked his life for an idea that, in the end, had no scientific backing. This makes us think, how far would you go to prove something you believe in? Mike Hughes went to the extreme, but his story serves as an important reminder that even if you strongly believe in something, it's always wise to listen to science and reflect on the evidence. Life is too precious to be risked over theories that lack scientific foundation. Think about it. What would you have done in his place? Would you try to find new ways to experiment? Or would you be more open to seeing what science has already shown us about the world? The most important thing is to always seek the truth with both feet on the ground and based on reliable evidence. Mike Hughes' story, as well as the failed attempts of other flat earthers, brings us an important lesson about the limits of belief. Of course, we all have the right to believe whatever we want. Freedom of thought and expression is essential, and this includes the right to hold our own ideas and theories. However, what we see in situations like this is that when beliefs become inflexible and begin to put people's safety and lives at risk, it's time to reflect more carefully. Imagine this. Someone decides to risk their life to prove the Earth is flat, like Mike did with his rocket. Or, in the case of other flat earthers, spending money and time on experiments that completely fail, yet still denying the evidence that science has already shown. This might seem a bit radical, right? The person is so attached to their idea that they don't care about the risks involved. It's natural that sometimes we really want to believe something, especially if that belief gives us a sense of control or certainty. But when we're talking about issues that affect our safety or health, we need to learn to balance our beliefs with what science and reality show us. Beliefs are powerful, but they can't replace facts and evidence. The issue here isn't to condemn anyone for their beliefs or ideas. After all, we all have the right to have our opinions and question the world around us. The problem arises when people begin to ignore the evidence and, worse, put their lives and others' safety at risk to defend those ideas. Life is something too precious, and we can't treat the risks we take in the name of unfounded theories lightly. No one, in their right mind, should risk their life to prove something that doesn't have solid scientific backing. That's why it's always good to remember that we don't need to risk everything to prove something, especially when we already have so much evidence available about the world around us. When we remain open to knowledge and discoveries, we can learn more and gain a better understanding of reality without putting our safety at risk. It's interesting to see how, no matter how much some flat earthers try to prove their ideas with risky and failed experiments, science continues to be a much more reliable and safe tool for understanding the world. Scientists have shown, over centuries, that the Earth is round, and there is clear and irrefutable evidence of this. We can simply look at the evidence that's available to us and learn from it. We must seek the truth rationally, without putting our own life or the lives of others at risk. No matter how much you believe in something, it's not worth putting your own life in danger to defend it. And in the end, this reflection is not just about the flat earth theory, but about everything in our lives. When we are certain of an idea, it's important to stop and ask ourselves, is this belief leading me down a safe and healthy path? Or am I ignoring reality in the name of something I desperately want to believe? The key is always to seek balance, respect evidence, and never forget that our lives and the lives of others have immense value. What about you? Have you thought about the limits of your own beliefs? How far would you go to prove something you believe in? Let's always remember that, in any area of life, it's better to trust reason, science, and evidence than to risk something that may not make sense or put our safety in danger. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel to continue receiving the next content. See you in the next video.